The diner was nearly empty that bright Saturday morning, sunlight spilling across the cracked leather booths and faded checkered floors. A few locals sat scattered about, truckers nursing coffee, an elderly couple sharing pancakes, and at the far corner table sat a woman in full military uniform. Her shoulders carried not just the weight of medals but the invisible burden of years spent in war zones, decisions, and farewells. 4-star General Marion Voss had returned home after 36 years of service. She had commanded battalions, stood before presidents, and faced battles few could imagine, but at that moment, she wished only to disappear quietly into the ordinary world. Across from her sat a little girl, maybe 8 years old, with soft brown curls and eyes too tired for her age. She poked at her half-eaten toast, glancing shyly at the plate of a man sitting alone a few tables away. The man, dressed in a grease-stained mechanic's uniform, noticed her gaze but said nothing, until her stomach gave a faint growl that broke his heart. Before we go deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul Moments Story. It helps more hearts find stories like this one. The man's name was Caleb Marsh, a single father trying to make ends meet after his wife's passing 2 years ago. He had come to the diner after dropping off his 10-year-old son, Owen, at a friend's house. He recognized hunger when he saw it. It had lived in his own kitchen for months. The little girl's mother, General Voss, noticed too, because she quickly placed her hand over her daughter's and whispered something firm. But the child's eyes kept drifting toward Caleb's plate, where a few untouched fries sat beside his sandwich. Caleb hesitated, then smiled gently and slid the plate toward the edge of his table. "Hey," he said softly, not wanting to embarrass them. "Would you like some fries? They're fresh." The girl's face lit up, but her mother's jaw tightened instantly. "No, thank you," General Voss replied sharply, her tone disciplined and clipped, as if issuing an order. Her daughter looked down, cheeks flushed. Caleb nodded respectfully and withdrew the plate, murmuring, "Of course." But something about the way the woman's hand trembled as she picked up her coffee told him there was more behind her walls than pride. The general stood to leave, placing a few crumpled bills on the table, when her daughter, her name tag read, Emma, whispered something that made her mother freeze mid-step. "Mom, I'm still hungry." The diner grew quiet. Caleb looked away, pretending not to hear, but every fatherly instinct in him screamed to help. General Voss closed her eyes, exhaled slowly, and reached for her wallet, only to realize she had left her card in her car. She searched her pockets, face pale, and Caleb could see the cracks forming in her soldier's composure. Without hesitation, he called over the waitress. "Add their breakfast to my tab, please." General Voss turned sharply. "That's unnecessary." "It's already done," Caleb said kindly. "You've served this country more than enough. Let someone else serve you for once." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Emma's small hand tugged at her sleeve, whispering a shy, "Thank you, mister." The general swallowed hard, nodded once, and guided her daughter outside. Caleb figured that was the end of it. But life has a strange way of crossing paths twice when lessons are left unfinished. That night, a thunderstorm rolled through town, shaking the old windows of Caleb's tiny house. Owen slept soundly in his room, while Caleb sat by the window repairing a broken carburetor by lamplight. Around 9 p.m., a sharp knock startled him. When he opened the door, he froze. Standing in the rain was General Voss, soaked and holding a small box in her hands. "I came to return this," she said, handing him a folded $100 bill and a metal case wrapped in cloth. "You paid for our meal." "I don't accept charity." Caleb shook his head. "It wasn't charity, General. It was breakfast." Her eyes, hardened by years of command, softened slightly. "I'm not used to people helping me," she murmured. "In my world, help usually comes with strings." Caleb motioned for her to come inside out of the rain. She hesitated but finally stepped in, dripping water onto the worn rug. The scent of motor oil and freshly brewed coffee filled the air. "You must think I'm cold," she said quietly, setting down the metal case. "I've spent a lifetime telling others to be strong. Turns out, I forgot how to be anything else." As lightning flashed, Caleb caught sight of a photograph she kept inside the metal box, a young soldier, smiling, with Lieutenant Thomas Voss engraved on the frame. "Your husband?" he asked gently. She nodded, eyes glistening. He didn't make it home from Kandahar. Emma never met him. I thought if I just kept going, kept serving, maybe the world would make sense again. But lately, I can't even afford her favorite breakfast without losing my composure. Caleb poured her a mug of coffee and sat opposite her. You've been strong for so long, General. Maybe it's time someone else carries a bit of that weight. For the first time that day, she smiled, a fragile, human smile, the kind that comes when someone's armor finally cracks. She stayed for hours, sharing stories about life in the field, about the soldiers she'd lost, and about Emma's dream to be an artist, not a soldier. Caleb listened, really listened, the way people do when they understand pain. The next morning, Emma and Owen met for the first time at the diner. Emma shyly offered Owen a sketch of his dog she'd drawn overnight. It was surprisingly good, alive with detail and warmth. The children became fast friends, and soon the two families found themselves spending more time together, barbecues, school projects, and quiet evenings watching old movies. For General Voss, who had spent decades surrounded by uniforms and commands, the laughter of children and the smell of home-cooked food became a different kind of mission, one that reminded her she was still human. But healing is never linear. A few months later, the general received news that her retirement pension had been delayed due to bureaucratic review. Money grew tight again. She tried to hide it, working long hours consulting for security firms, but Caleb noticed the fatigue in her eyes and the weight she carried like a backpack full of unspoken battles. One Saturday afternoon, Emma fainted during art class. The doctor said she was fine, just exhaustion and lack of proper meals. Caleb found out when he arrived at the hospital to pick up Owen and saw General Voss sitting beside her daughter's bed, tears streaming down her face. It was the first time he'd ever seen the unbreakable general completely undone. She deserves better, she whispered. Better than a mother who can't even feed her right. Caleb knelt beside her and took her hand. You're not failing her, Marianne. You're just tired. You've carried the world on your back. Let someone carry you now. That night, he cooked for them. Just spaghetti and garlic bread, but when Emma took her first bite, she smiled wider than she had in months. The sight made Marianne cry silently into her napkin. Caleb reached over, squeezed her shoulder, and said softly, "You don't have to earn kindness, you just have to accept it." Days turned into weeks, and something unspoken bloomed between them, not romance at first, but deep respect and a shared understanding of what it meant to lose and rebuild. Marianne helped Owen with his school science fair project, while Caleb taught Emma how to fix her old bicycle. Slowly, the general who once commanded armies learned how to find peace in small moments, a child's laughter, a shared cup of coffee, the warmth of family she never expected to find again. One evening, the town held a Veterans Appreciation Day at the local park. Marianne was the guest of honor. She stood on stage in her formal uniform, medals gleaming, but her speech wasn't about victories or sacrifice. She spoke about community, kindness, and how sometimes the bravest thing a soldier, or anyone, can do is ask for help. Caleb stood among the crowd, Emma perched on his shoulders, beaming. After the ceremony, Marianne walked toward him, holding a small medal in her hand. "This belonged to Thomas," she said. "He believed courage wasn't just about facing bullets, it was about facing people with an open heart. You reminded me of that." She placed the medal in Caleb's hand. "Thank you for seeing me when I wanted to disappear." Caleb's throat tightened. "You gave your life to protect others, General. I just gave you breakfast." She smiled through her tears. Sometimes, breakfast can save a soul. Months later, the two families began sharing a home, not out of romance, but out of a bond deeper than titles. Marianne finally started painting alongside Emma, while Caleb found himself smiling again in ways he hadn't since his wife passed. In the quiet rhythm of shared mornings, they discovered that broken people don't always need fixing, they just need belonging. And one morning, as sunlight poured through the kitchen window, Emma looked up from her sketchbook and asked, "Mom, do you think Dad in heaven knows we're okay now?" Marianne's eyes welled up as she nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. I think he's smiling." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Soul Moment Story, where real stories of kindness, hope, and second chances remind us that even the smallest act can change a life.